thank you for coming and joining us. This is the first speaker in our EcoFest speaker series today, so thank you for coming out. Just wanted to introduce you to Cathy Nesbitt. Cathy is an award-winning local innovator and entrepreneur and has won a number of environmental awards and business entrepreneurship awards. So, and she also does laughter yoga, which she's going to give a little session on later today. So, but what she's here to talk to us about this morning is the wonder of worms. So it's kind of a big passion of hers, but for small items, I guess, if you will. So, but very important. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Cathy, and feel free to ask any questions. And I think she's got sort of an interactive little presentation here for us. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming this morning. So, are you concerned about the environment?
Yes.
Wonder what more you can do? Get worms, I say. I am a worm advocate. So, it's 15 years I've had my Great Green business. So, is everyone familiar with regular composting? So, composting is usually done outside. No special equipment is required, just a pile or a composter. You add your yard waste, or your leaves, your grass clipping, your food scraps from the kitchen, turn it, add water. After a certain amount of time, it turns into compost that you can put in your garden. This is the same idea, except it's done inside with worms. So not the same at all, because it's done inside with worms. Has anyone seen worms when it rains and they come out there on the sidewalk? Yay, hallelujah. Because that means it's good soil, right? Yeah. So those worms are called night crawlers. Come on in. The worms that we use for worm composting are called red wigglers. Afraid of worms, it's okay. I meet them all the time, it's okay. So there are thousands of types of worms, only 4 that we can use for worm composting. So red wigglers are the optimal composting worms. I'm going to talk about the Canadian night crawler, the one that comes out when it rains, and the red wiggler for a moment. They're cousins. They're both earthworms, but they live in different environments. So the night crawler lives below the frost line. They go 4 to 6 feet below the surface. I know well, thank you. And then come up at night to draw the food down into their burrow. Right, pretty cool already. The red wigglers only go 4 to 6 inches, making them ideal to live inside, in our classroom, in our home, in our business, wherever we need to have worms. And just as an aside, I started my Great Green business in 2002. 15 years I've had my business. I've diverted several tons from landfill. Every time I sell worms, my customers are diverting from landfill. It's a whole feel-good business. And I started my business when the Keel Valley landfill closed, where the GTA put their garbage. When the landfill for the largest city in the country closes, it's a problem, a big problem. And although we're second largest country in the world, we couldn't find a place originally to put our garbage, so we started shipping garbage to the United States. Can you imagine? Shame on us for shipping our garbage, not just out of the city, not just out of the province, out of the country. Like our garbage needs a passport. Not funny. Okay. Sorry, I laughed a lot because I'm a laughter leader. Okay, so this is a hopeful solution. I believe that this is a way of the future. It's a way of the past, a way of the future, and I'm wanting to bring it into the present. Right, so that we don't need to ship all this garbage around and literally putting our money in the garbage in the green bin. Like it's a way, it's something, it's raised awareness, but we can do better. Instead of shipping it around, we can do it on site. Come on in. You know, creating some wonderful soil, and I'm going to talk about how that works in a second. So we don't have a lot of time. This is kind of just an intro session. So, are you ready? I don't think you had spaghetti for breakfast. So, this is a picture of a pound of red wigglers. And I thought it was going to be a big room, so I brought the big picture. So these are my hands. 800 to 1,000 worms in a pound, 5 hearts each, 4,000 to 5,000 hearts in a pound of worms. It's a lot of love. It's a great Valentine's gift. Just know the receiver. Or I want to end my relationship. They don't like worms. Oh, okay, worms. No, okay. Different talk. Okay, the worms eat approximately half their weight per day in food scraps. So I'm sorry for my display. It looks kind of gross, but it's a worm buffet now. Look at it, it's so beautiful. So the worms eat about half their weight per day in food scraps. So a pound of worms, half a pound per day, or 3 to 4 pounds per week. This is a week's worth of food for a pound of worms. Pretty bright. I mean, it looks pretty gross. It was out in the sun all day Thursday. And I squish out all the oxygen when I put the food in the bag, but as it breaks down, the methane gets released, the gas. So, does anyone have a green bin at home? So sometimes when you open your container, does it smell like roses? No, it smells pretty awful, right? So that's just like if I open up this bag, it would smell pretty awful, even though it was, I was going to say yesterday's dinner, but not yesterday. The other day was dinner, delicious. But today, the devil, right? Now it's going to smell, attract rodents or fruit flies. It's going to be a problem. So this is kind of, other than nuclear waste, this is the last frontier of waste management, where we need to manage this stuff, but it smells, it rots, it breaks down, and so we need to do it quickly. Worms are the way. The red wigglers. So the kind of things you can put in your worm bin, you can put all your bananas, apples, oranges, all your fruit, all your celery, carrots, lettuce, all your vegetables. Here's a list of things you can put in your worm bin. You ready? You're sitting down? Yes, you are. Good. Okay. Fruit and veg, coffee, tea, pasta, rice, beans, grains, microwave, cereal. It's endless what can go in. What stays out? No meat, no dairy, no sauce. If you're not sure, you can leave it out. Those worms don't have teeth, so the smaller you chop up your scraps, the faster it breaks down, the more the worms can eat. It's the basic formula. Any container will do. It's creating the right environment for the worms. So, although this is a beautiful container, we don't even sell these anymore. So any container will do, like a Rubbermaid or just a toad, an old recycling bin, anything like that will do. You need some kind of a carbon source. So the carbon that we use is shredded paper. Could be leaves, straw, cardboard, drink trays, egg cartons, paper towel rolls, toilet paper rolls, paper plates, napkins. So just like the food scraps, all kinds of things can be used for your bedding. Whatever you have, that's what you use. That's what I tell you. Right? And if you think about this, so you think, people will say, well, what about the paper? Is that a problem? I started my business in 2002, right? The Peel Valley landfill closed, Toronto, 6 million people, half live in condos, without outdoor space to do outdoor composting or access to the green bin program. So all of their scraps are going in the garbage. So this is a way to at least manage some of your scraps. And if you live in an apartment, you don't have access to leaves. So using paper is a beautiful thing. So just like the scraps, the smaller you shred up your paper, the faster it breaks down, the more accessible it is to the worms. Next ingredient, I didn't say, but the red wigglers are not soil dwellers. They do require some soil in the system because they don't have teeth, so there's little microorganisms in the soil that help to break down the food. They're actually the worms are the top predator in the worm bin, but they're not the most effective decomposer. It's all the little microbes that are doing the work. And then it's just like life, right? The CEOs get all the glory, but all the workers do all the work, just like in a worm bin. All the microbes do the work, and the worms are like, yay, we're the stars, although people don't consider them stars. But can of worms, you know, it's a negative connotation. My goal is to turn that around. Can of worms, yay! Right, because worms really have a bad rap. Viruses in computers, often worms, right? Parasites, worms, tapeworm, bad. Right? So worms just are not a friendly creature. Come on in. So, next ingredient, so whatever you're using, you've got your paper or your leaves if you prefer. The next ingredient is soil. We just need about 1 liter of soil. So this is regular garden soil, regular soil from the garden. You wouldn't use potting soil. Potting soil is sterilized. So if you're getting soil in a bag, it's been sterilized. It's still fine to start your seeds, but there's no microbes in it by design. So it's not going to help your worms, except for the grit. So you do need to add outdoor soil. Next ingredient is crushed eggshells. You need to add 6 to 8 crushed eggshells at the beginning. Worms breathe through their skin. This helps to balance the pH of the acidity. And last ingredient, water. About 2 liters of water for a bin this size. You mix all your ingredients together. Add your worms on top. Are you ready? Sorry, thank you. Thanks for coming. Thanks for starting us off. So that was, sorry, here we go. It's upside down, you didn't know, but. And sorry that it's so big. I do have a smaller picture here. So then you add your worms in. And then when you're feeding, so they'll naturally make their way down into the bedding. When you're feeding the food scraps, again, the more chopped up it is, the faster it breaks down, the more the worms can eat. You pull back the bedding, add your chopped up fruit in the hole you've made, make sure that it's covered so you don't get fruit flies. Has anyone ever had fruit flies at home? Yeah, thank you. Sorry that you had fruit flies. Don't they bug you? Oh, they bug me. So, I'm going to talk about fruit flies. So they come, we invite them into our house, like in the winter. They're not flying around outside, right? They're too smart for that. So they get on the fruit, and then when we bring the fruit into the house, now they're in the house. And we can't see them, right? So the eggs, fruit fly eggs are very fragile. So with your stuff that you generally don't wash, like your bananas, you just peel it, your orange, you just peel it. So the eggs are on the outside. So anything you don't generally wash before eating, give that a quick rinse, add it into a container, let it start to rot for a couple of days, and then burying it in so your first defense is rinsing any scraps you don't generally wash, bananas, orange, melon, and then burying it in the bedding. So if there are fruit flies, say, in your house, they're not going to make their way into your bin. And you know, I say to people, if you've ever had fruit flies and you haven't had a worm bin, you know the fruit flies don't come from here. They come from the food you're putting in the bin. So some management is required. It's done in the house. You don't want fruit flies. Unless you don't mind. Unless they don't bug you. They bug me. Because we call them bugs. They're just doing their job. They can't help it. So you're rotating around, burying your scraps, adding paper, adding food. The worms eat it all, so the worms will convert this plus the paper into, oh my gosh, are you ready? This is so beautiful. This is nature's magic show. Look at this. So all the brown material is worm poo. Yep, that's right. I said it. So look at this. It's almost pure worm poo. It looks like black baby powder. It's so beautiful. This is all our plants need to grow. It's so magic. So, to get your worms out of a basic container, the easiest way if you're comfortable handling the worms is to dump and sort. You dump your bin on a plastic sheet, put it in small round piles. The worms are photosensitive or afraid of the light, so they go down into the piles, scoop off the top, scoop around the sides. Maybe an hour to do a bin this size. Once you get your worms all separated, set up your new bedding, add the worms back in, use the black gold on your plants. So the plants, if we look after the soil looks after the plants for us. They have this beautiful relationship. This is magic. I'm going to use this as a ruler. Maybe I could write away. Maybe I will. Where was I? No. So if there's an organism in the soil that wants to get to the plant, like, ooh, look at that, looks like a nice healthy plant, I'd like to get in there and cause some damage. It can't get there because the organisms are protecting it. They're like standing guard. No, we're looking after this plant. We can't get there. You got to go to the next plant because it's not protected by us. So I say it's like if we have a strong immune system. We're drinking our water, we're eating our apples, we're moving around, we're having good thoughts, and we're in good shape. If somebody has a cold beside us and they sneeze, we probably won't get it. The microbes will be like, oh no, we can't get in there. That body's too strong. So that's why we need to be healthy and strong so that we can ward off different things. There's so many correlations between the worms and us. Super. I didn't have questions because I don't have too much time with us today. Questions, because I'm going to keep going. So, okay, so once you get your worms separated, you set your worms up, you add your worms back in, use the black gold for your plants. How do you use the compost? If you've got an existing plant, you would just gently work the castings around the stem and work it into the soil. As you water, the nutrients are released so that they're able to be taken up by the plant. If it's spring now, it's almost time for planting, so if you're going to plant your little seedlings, dig your hole, line the hole with the castings, and then again the nutrients are available to be taken up by the plant. So beautiful. You can't use too much of it, but it is super rich, so it's kind of a waste to use too much. The optimum range from studies that they've done is 20% castings to 80% soil, so you really don't need a lot if you were doing a mix. So you would just need 20% of the compost. Again, water soluble, so it won't hurt your plants and will dissolve in water. If you wanted to make some compost tea, not for drinking, but for your plants, you take some of the castings. Castings is a fancy word for worm poo, and mix it into your watering jug. It's water soluble, so it will stir into. Then you get kind of tea-looking liquid, and then you just water your plants. And again, the nutrients are available to be taken up by the plant. So magic. If you think this is pretty cool, but you don't want to do the harvesting part, I have a display in the arena, and brand new in worm composting. It's this big, I guess. It's the size of a stool. It looks like a stool, so you might not even recognize that it's a worm bin. It's so fun. So when your neighbors come over or your friends that don't like worms, then it's fun. They can just sit on the worms and they won't even know. So it's made in Ontario, and it's got 2 trays. So same idea as your basic kit, Except in a couple of months, the tray will fill, you set up the next tray, and the worms will follow the foods. They migrate to the next level, and then a couple months later, the bottom will be converted. You take that out, use that on your gardens, and then move the other tray down. There's a tap right at the very bottom, which helps to manage the moisture. So as the food breaks down, the juice gets released. So if you're using a single unit, you have to be careful it doesn't get too wet. In the tower composters, the excess moisture will drain down. You can siphon it off. If it smells bad, it's anaerobic. Maybe it smells bad. If it doesn't smell bad, it's aerobic and can be used by plants. Plants always require aerobic bacteria. So if it smells bad, it's bad. If it doesn't smell bad, it's usable. And if you have a damaged olfactory well, you'll have to ask somebody that doesn't. Yeah, so this is, that's pretty much vermicomposting 101 in a nutshell.
I have two questions.
Unless you have another.
One, like how much does cost? And two, do you keep it going through the winter and save the castings in a container or something and put it in the ground?
Oh, thank you, good. Okay, so $55 a pound for the worms. And we do have them here today. And, sorry, what was the other question?
You keep going through the winter.
Yeah, so this is indoor composting. So yes, you keep going year round. And it can be outside spring, summer, and fall, but we need to be brought in winter. If you time yes, you can do your harvest and store the castings. I would store them in an open bucket because it's living soil. It can freeze and thaw and still be fine, but you don't want to put it in a sealed container because the oxygen will be consumed. Just like your compost tea, you can't keep your compost tea because the oxygen will be consumed by the microorganisms. So yes, you can keep it going year round. You can add these worms to an outdoor composter as well. The worms will speed up the process, do the churning for you, allowing you all that leisure time. Like, I wish there was a better way. Yeah, there is. Just add worms, so fun. In the fall, when they sense the temperature change, they breed more than usual, deposit their eggs throughout, and then they hibernate. They tie themselves in a knot. And all worms do that, all the earthworms will do that. So in the summer, if we're having a drought and it's really dry, the earthworms, you may be digging in your soil, it might be quite dry. You might find a worm tied in a knot. It's like, oh, look at this little worm tied in a knot. It's because they're like, oh, I hope it rains soon, or I hope to water the garden soon. This we need some moisture. And same in the winter, they hibernate, they tie themselves in a knot, and they get really close. They don't have personal space, where's my picture? So look, they like each other, they're all right. So they tie themselves in a knot, they get closer and closer in your outdoor composter. If it freezes, the worms won't survive. But if it doesn't freeze solid, the eggs will overwinter anyway, but the worms will survive if it doesn't freeze solid. It's magic. This is so beautiful.
So if you have too much of it in your compost, you're putting it onto the worms are going to the
Right, so, thank you. So if you're using one of those earth machines, there's a little tap or a trap door at the bottom. So the worms are surface dwellers. So if you're adding your material at the top and taking stuff out of the bottom, there may be eggs in there. If they get deposited in the soil, the worms will migrate back. They're not soil dwellers, so they're not going to stay in the soil. They may become feed for somebody, like a bird or moles or something, or they'll migrate back. They're not going to, unless you have a high organic content in your soil, they're not going to survive in the soil. Yeah. And yes, so I'm just about out, the next speaker is coming. So, thank you so much for coming. I do have some shameless self-promotion here. I do awesome school workshops, and I always forget about asking for the apps. So please come and visit my booth over there. Take a postcard if you like. I'm doing laughter yoga, which seems not related. It's totally related. Because I've got worms, I gotta laugh because people say mean things. So I'm doing a laughter yoga session at 12:30, and it's a beautiful way to connect with your family. It's such a wonderful thing to, and I'll be giving you some tips and tricks for stress management. It's so beautiful, and we'll have a good laugh. So thank you so much for coming today to the Wonder of Worms.
Thank you, Cathy.